In a world that thrives on collaboration and diversity of thought, the concept of shared leadership is gaining momentum. In this era of interconnectedness, individuals from various backgrounds comes together to form a cohesive unit where leadership is a collective effort rather than a singular role. The cornerstone of this approach is building collective purpose. This progressive strategy involves aligning a diverse group of individuals under a common vision, enabling them to contribute their unique strengths toward the shared goal. Today, do we have this? So the whole conversation today is going to be on the topic of building collective purpose, an approach to shared leadership. A very warm welcome to Season 9 EI Cafe with Azim, and I'm your host, Azim Sahir, a human capital specialist, a legacy display facilitator, ICF certified PCC level coach, an emotional intelligence and an emotional culture practitioner. I'm one of the lead facilitator at Luminous Learning Solution. I'm thrilled to be back for another season, another episode filled with valuable learning in next 30 minutes. So, you heard the topic, building collective purpose, an approach to shared leadership. He's an award-winning leadership expert who delivers high impact and engaging workshops and speeches. As a decorated combat veteran, an academic researcher who values the power and impact of collaboration and creativity. He brings a unique perspective to you, organizations, and let's explore what he has to give us today. One thing common me and this guest has, we love to play. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Dr. William, owner of Shared Leadership, a leader and team development workshop provider. Gail, welcome to the cafe.
Excellent. I am so happy to be here. Azim, thank you so much for extending the invitation, and I can't wait to get into the conversation today.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, thank you very much for spending, I know it's late evening almost today, so we do have a big time difference. Morning for me, late evening for you. I think thank you very much for spending your valuable 30 minutes to inspire people on a topic. It's very important in today's context because we have been talking a lot. I think before the discussion always said how collaboration works and etc. etc. So on that note, let's get into business. I have seen you talk a lot about this concept of shared leadership, right? Shared leadership does not come unless a collective purpose is established. So, well, let me start off with this. What exactly collective purpose is?
Absolutely. So that's a cornerstone of any high-performing team, and it really is a building block of a team's ability to begin to share leadership within that team. Collective purpose can be thought of, it's a shared understanding and belief in a team's purpose. So a collective purpose, it's a driving force that unites individuals together around a shared mission or vision. And what this means is that, you know, if you understand who you are, and then you understand who we are as a team, what we're here to do, where we are today, and we have that shared collective purpose of where are we going? What are we trying to accomplish? That's when that power becomes together, and you shift from being just a group of individuals that are being led doing tasks alongside each other to a team that's performing towards something higher than what you can accomplish on your own. So that idea of collective purpose, it really is a transformative power within a team. When you can align, then you can begin to get into some of the shared leadership concepts. And that really just takes performance to a higher level.
Right. So I'm curious to know, with your experience in today's context, in the corporate world, I know you have been working with many organizations. What is missing in terms of collective purpose?
When you take a look at a team and you ask people individually, why are you here? What do you want to accomplish from your work life? You get a ton of different answers. If collective purpose isn't there, you can think of crises that have happened. Think of if you're familiar with NASA. NASA wanted to put a person on the moon in the 60s. If you asked somebody, why are you here? What are you doing? I'm putting a person on the moon. Now that person's function could be a janitor, could be an engineer, but their collective purpose was to accomplish something greater, to put a person on the moon. If you think of ideas in the world of work today, where people come in and they have certain desires, they have certain expectations of their organization and the culture and climate. Some people look at work as transactional. But if you can tap into their motivation, if you can tap into their extrinsic motivation, if you can tie them and give them meaningful work, and you can give them a purpose for being at work, that is a missing piece that a lot of leaders undervalue. A lot of leaders will give you direction, they'll give you tasks, they'll give you what to do, they'll give you the tools to do it. But if you don't take time to explain the why, if you don't take time to share what this means to the overall organization, what it means to your customer, what it means to the world, right? That's what gets people to keep coming back and wanting to do more and wanting to share and give more of themselves, because they don't want to let the person next to them down. They don't want to let the team down, because they know that they're carrying a load and somebody else is depending on them, and they're serving a bigger purpose.
Absolutely. I think you are spot on, because there was an organization, it's a global organization, I work with them. It was regional leaders, and every time when we ask, we are struggling to do this, we are struggling to do this, can you let me know how do you set goals? Then they were very much technical, they were very much on the numbers, and I said, do you have any idea what would be their purpose to work under you? So then the element what you shared, like the understanding of the purpose of the subordinate and understanding the purpose of the organization, understand the purpose of the team, I think that should be connecting. Am I correct?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll give you an example that I had in my own work life. When I first left the Army, the first company I went to work for was Target Corporation, and I worked in their distribution center. And in my head, that work was moving boxes from inbound to outbound, getting them off a truck, getting them on a truck, so that people could fulfill orders. And I was young and naive, and I couldn't see past that. And I ended up leaving that job. And it wasn't until a decade later where I'm having a conversation with the owner of a software tax company, and he put it into perspective for me. So think about working at a retail store in a distribution center. What you do is moving boxes. What you do is warehousing freight. But our purpose is to be able to give. Think about that single mother. Think about that parent. Think about that person shopping who only has 30 minutes in their day. They only have a half a tank of gas. They only have limited funds, and they need to get to that store and get what they need at a fraction of a cost. If I can make sure that that item is on that shelf for that person, I'm serving my purpose. If I can make sure that that person's day, that load is lightened, they have their laundry detergent, they have their baby's diapers, their formula, whatever it is they're shopping for, that they have a need for, I have served my purpose. Because maybe they can't afford to go to the next store. Maybe they don't have time between picking up their kids and getting to their second job, right? It's those people that you're serving. And the person that was working for this software tax company shared something very similar of, we're giving back into the economy. We're helping people, generate capital and all these things that were just a secondary around what it is that you're doing. And Simon Sinek hits on it with start with why, which is great for an individual. But when you start working in a team, you really have to share that belief. You have to share that understanding and buy into where are we going together, so we can get there together.
So on that note, why do you think it's important? I do understand it's the bigger picture, but the question is, Does leaders and the teams do realize or understand the importance of this? If not, what is stopping them?
Yes, I think when you get to peeling things back, what I found in research is that you look at leadership and an antiquated model of leadership. And when you think about, if you just take a second to visualize, I want you to picture a leader, and you may be picturing somebody. The first thing that comes to mind is a person who holds a position of power and authority, who tells you what to do, and that's a person. That's not leadership, right? So when you look at where new leaders get things wrong, or where they undervalue the power of some of those intangibles. I can learn, I can become a subject matter expert, I can tell you what to do. That's only going to get you so far. Now you're getting into transactional leadership. And transactional leadership works both ways. You're only going to get so much out of me. I'm only going to wait to be tasked. I'm only going to wait to be told what to do. I'm not going to bring my ideas up. I'm going to sit back and let the leader lead. And that is, you'll still get work done. You can still hit metrics, but that feeling of that experience of your work life is what shifts. And so leaders that get it understand the power of people. And leadership is a people business. It doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter what industry we're in. Leadership is about people. And when it becomes about people, people want purpose. People want meaning. People want something more out of their life than to just wake up and punch a clock and go in and out of work. So when that clicks for someone who holds the position of power, when that clicks for someone who has those resources, then you start to understand the impact of dispersing it. And research will show you that when you empower your team, which means to share power with, when you give your team purpose, when you give your team resources, when you start there, now you can really start to empower your team. You can remove roadblocks. You can bring them into decision making. You can start to share leadership, because we all know where we're steering to. We all know where we're going, and we all know that we're going there together. So what's missing, I think, is just the idea of 21st century leadership in the world of AI, disruption, technology, speed of business. The world of work is changing, and leadership needs to change and evolve with it.
I think you're spot on. We are running a race where we are not planning to stop anymore. We keep on running, because me and you talking today, tomorrow we have something really amazing coming up, and we might be thinking, okay, what is that? The element of, the uncertainty is very high. So that's why I think you're spot on. I think we need to change. And you led this particular conversation for my next question. You mentioned about the shared leadership. Can you just elaborate us, our audience and viewers, what would be the shared leadership is about? Because when you say shared leadership, people think like, I'm contributing my this thing, and just like I'm working as a team, because that's the misconception most of the people has. When you say shared leadership, they think, okay, we all working together. Yeah, but working together, but for what? What do you think, Will?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. It's a misconception. So even in research right now, there's some conflicting or some different of opinion with what shared leadership can be defined as or conceptualized. So fundamentally, shared leadership occurs when those leadership behaviors, those leadership responsibilities are shared amongst the team. So it does not mean that everybody is leading at the same time. It does not mean that you don't have a designated team leader. If you peel leadership back and you think about it differently, if you think about leadership as a process that's interactive between members of a team versus leadership of being tied to a person, when leadership is the process, it's the process of influence towards a common goal or objective. So when we come together as a team, I may be a formal team leader. I may have the title supervisor and be in charge of people, but I have the ability to share leadership responsibilities within my team. And you start to get into sources of power. You start to get into diversity of thought and functional diversity, team composition, psychological safety, all of these things that I can influence as a team leader to set my team up. So shared leadership is when leadership responsibilities ebb and flow are given and taken a person who's a team leader. In today's world of work, how can one person have all of the knowledge, skills, and abilities and be omnipotent and be everywhere at once. Think about, we've got globally dispersed teams. We've got teams that work remotely, have never seen each other. We've got the speed of business picks up. No one person can have all of the answers. But in the industrial age, that was expected. The leader has the answers. I tell you what to do. You execute. You come back and ask a question. I give you the answer. It's very point to point. What shared leadership allows you to do is to take that point to point from top down, and now you become this nucleus type team where someone's got expertise. You've got the lead on that. Someone else has organizational skills. You're going to be responsible for that. We have a decision to be made. Let me gather all of the insights from my team. Now you're leveraging inclusive environments. Now you're leveraging diversity within your team. Now you're leveraging creativity because you're operating in a collaborative environment with a collective purpose, and you're willing to share those leadership responsibilities. And that drives so many positive outcomes when you can achieve it. It happens over time. So it's an approach a leader can take over time with their team once they have some fundamental team dynamics in place to really help their team take off. It's more than just teamwork. It's more than just working together.
So here are two things comes to my mind. Number one, so in that particular composition, leader doesn't need to be an expert on it. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
No, you're correct.
Number two, the question is, I'd love to get into your former profession on the battlefield. How does shared leadership comes in terms of a battlefield context? But I think that would be a fantastic example just to let the people know how these things happen.
Yeah. So ironically, that's where it hit me the hardest was being able to share leadership. And typically when I ask people, give me a context where shared leadership wouldn't work, the military is the first thing that comes up. But ironically, what the military is going through is more of a decentralized command and control. The battlefield has gotten bigger. Technology has enabled us to cover more space without having as many boots on ground, right? So that old command and control model has gone away. Now we need to operate underneath this idea of I give you my intent and we move out. So I'll use myself as a case study. I led a maintenance recovery team. So our job was to go out on the supply routes and we would pick up damaged and destroyed vehicles and bring them back safely to base. I was not, so I had a wheeled vehicle mechanic, I had a welder, I had a recovery specialist, I had combat lifesavers, I had combat drivers, I had heavy equipment transportation specialists. I have never done any of those jobs in my life. I have never performed those functional tasks, but I was the one who was tapped to lead this team. So think about the old style of leadership where one person, me, holds the responsibility to lead. If my team was waiting on me to give them point-to-point direction and to tell them what to do and to be a subject matter expertise across all those functional areas, we would be in a world of hurt. So what I needed to do was create the environment where my team felt safe and comfortable voicing their opinion, regardless of the rank that they held. Where they knew I had overall responsibility and I might have had final say on some decisions, but I gave them decision space where they can make decisions on their own. As long as here's my intent. If it falls within the left and right limit, it's moral, it's ethical, it's legal, go forth. Right? So what that allowed us to do was operate with speed, operate with trust. And we didn't have rework. We didn't have to second guess. We were able to support each other. And the third and fourth order effects was we learned from one another. We had people now that picked up different skill sets. We had people now that picked up and understood different functional expertise, because when you switch from a supported to supporting role, and then 20 minutes later, those roles are reversed, you've got to be able to lead and follow. And when you learn those skills within a team, it's easy to switch from being comfortable leading to being comfortable being led. And we could accomplish so much more. And that was my experience. The epiphany for me over the past 20 years of my career is every team that I have led, I have never actually performed the technical task of those that I've led. I've led satellite communication teams. I'm not a SATCOM equipment expert. I've led maintenance recovery teams. I don't know those tasks. I've led maintenance teams where we have people who are so specialized in repairing equipment. But I was the quote unquote leader in the vertical hierarchy. Well, I needed to adapt. I knew I couldn't adapt an authoritative directive style. I needed to be able to flex to this empowering style. And then what I discovered along the way is that sharing leadership not only got the job done better, but it prepared my team for more. They were more engaged. They were more apt to bring up ideas and take initiative. They were more creative because they were willing to share ideas with each other. So all of those, not just bottom line effects, but then when I was ready to move on, I had 2 or 3 people who were ready to take my place because they had experience leading.
Brilliant. So, a couple of things I'm getting from this. Number one, I know VUCA came from the military perspective. A real example for VUCA, right? It's very volatile, the battlefield, it's very uncertain, it's ambiguity, it's complex. At the same time, you did mention about the adaptability, how each person get, switching that hold, supporting and supported. Adaptability is really important. And another element is something I learned is learning from each other. And you get engagement, right? For example, you would have learned something from your team members, right? On that particular process. I think as a leader, if these components, not only there are many other components, if these components can be adapted, you mean to say like shared leadership can be really practiced in a corporate context. What do you think?
Oh, 100%. 100% it can. And there's companies that do that today to the nth degree. W.L. Gore is a great example of a US based company that embodies and embraces the shared leadership model. The willingness, though, to shed ego, the willingness to select leaders that are okay being vulnerable, that are okay not being an expert in a technical field. And I'm saying that shared leadership is not a silver bullet. You're not going to put somebody in charge of a surgical team that doesn't have a surgical background, right? But what I'm saying is that in a lot of different contexts, ironically, some of the research that a colleague of mine have conducted, surgical teams do share leadership, right? It's give and take depending on expertise needed at the time. But that's a whole nother conversation. So what I'm saying is that in the corporate world, when you start to embrace psychological safety, when you start to embrace collective purpose, when you start to embrace diversity and inclusion, when you start to embrace collaborative efforts, co-creation type efforts, and when you start to embrace empowerment.
Yeah.
And then you have team processes that enable communication to flow, and team process that enable conflict management to occur. And conflict is not viewed as a negative, it's viewed as a learning point.
Yeah.
This is when you have these elements that come together, then shared leadership will be established and will also be a lever to pull to allow your teams to thrive in their work environment.
So before I move on to the next question, I'm really curious to bring this point, right? How does emotional intelligence come to this into picture? How important this particular component in a shared leadership?
Very, very important, right? Because not only for self, but for other awareness, right? So when you start to break down emotional intelligence, you think about self-awareness. You also think about other awareness, especially if you're still in an organization that has a vertical hierarchy. Not everyone wants to lead, right? So you can't just thrust it upon them. There has to be a give. There also has to be a take. But the idea of being able to read a room, being able to see how someone is reacting to somebody else coming in to lead, being able to identify who's comfortable in this environment, who's not, how people are reacting. As the formal leader, some of the approaches with shared leadership, you put on more of a coaching concept, right? So being able to, when someone asks you a question, being able to not answer it, and be okay with it, and make them okay with that, and help them to, hey, you asked me a question, but I'm going to ask you 3 more to raise your self-awareness, to get you to kind of self-solve or go back out so that you can be prepared to lead and help lead. That's the shift. So I think emotional intelligence from those in a leadership position, as well as those on a team, to be able to understand yourself, understand others, how you're impacting each other along the way, is an ability that you will need to continue to harness and
Mm.
practice and
Mm.
grow for shared leadership to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are still not in the age full time getting into the element of working with robots. Still, we are working with human beings. So I think it's highly important on that particular note. Yeah. So as we're coming to the end of conversation, I'm just curious to know, like, how do you cultivate? We really talked about collective purpose and shared leaders. How an organization and a leader can cultivate such purpose and leadership style.
Yeah. So when we talk about building a collective purpose, strategies for cultivating that, having a vision and crafting that vision together, right? It's got to be something that can't be accomplished by one person. It's got to resonate with people. People have to say, they have to connect with that vision of where we want to be and where are we going as a team. Authenticity plays a big step in that as well. So people have to show up and be able to be willing to be themselves as they drive towards that collective purpose. When you have vision and then you've got alignment to that vision and you've got authentic communication, now you've got real talk. Now you've got people that are transparent and can start to have conversations at a deeper level of what needs to occur with work. And then you've got that open dialogue. And along the way, once you have that foundation and you make it okay for people to make mistakes, they don't fear making mistakes. Mistakes are a point of learning. It's a point of pivot. It's a point of understanding. Now you're willing to take more risk. You're willing to take more initiative. As you share information, make it accessible to everybody. It's not withheld as a power source. It's dispersed so people can have it at their fingertips. Then you start looking at who's on my team. What type of person? Functional diversity. Do I have an engineer? Do I need a salesperson? Do I need an IT person? I need to get somebody else. I need to get different thinkers on my team, critical thinkers, creative thinkers. Now you start building that team composition who are driving towards the same goal, but think differently. Now you've got more robust solutions that'll come up. You draw from a wider and deeper range of experiences and abilities. And then you start looking at, as the leader, you're starting to sit back and shift, and followership goes up, leadership goes up, the give and take starts to happen in those team dynamics. And all the while, then as a formal leader, when your team begins to have that collective purpose and shared leadership, you start to have fertile ground for you to be able to give more meaning to people, to remove roadblocks, to bring people in to participate. So your job as a leader, actually, it shifts from director to facilitator.
Absolutely. I love that part. I love that. But director from facilitator, because as you mentioned, people thought leadership is about power and authority and a status and etc. etc. But people really misunderstood the concept of, as you now just said, from being a director to being a facilitator. I think facilitator role is more important on that context. So, what are the benefits, Will, when we adapt to such collective purpose and a shared leadership? What are the benefits organization leaders and people get on this?
Yeah, and this is what I love about learning to and being a researcher, is because you can go dig into studies that have been done and find some of that context. So, collective purpose and shared leadership, both performance outcomes compared to the teams that don't have that, are through the roof. But more importantly, to get there, job satisfaction of your team goes up, engagement levels of your team goes up, the people's view of their effectiveness of their team goes up. Relationships with people's bosses improve. And that has time and again been found as the leading factor for dissatisfaction of a job and attrition, is relationship with my boss. Well, so when you have this feeling of collectiveness, when you have this ability to, I can come in and influence people and I don't have to be a leader. I have influence at work. I have a say over my team's decisions. I can participate in that. You start to see those in those less tangible, less measurable, but yet correlated to performance measures go up. Organizational commitment. All of those things are positive. Your attrition goes down. Your retention goes up. So now you start talking hard dollar figures. What's it cost you to replace somebody who leaves? Right? Because they don't have purpose, because they don't have meaning, because they don't have a say. And that's what they're looking for. So you can start to put some hard dollar figures around the secondary effects of not having shared leadership and not having collective purpose in forms of attrition rates, job loss, sick days, all of those things that get taken. So it's a very positive outcome for organizations that can stick to it. But it does take discipline, Azim.
Yeah.
It takes discipline to shift how you lead and make this change over time.
And it'll take some time, I guess, because human behaviors, suddenly getting change is very, very difficult. So it takes some time. So fantastic, Will. I think we're almost done with our conversation. What would be the one or two tip you want to share with our listeners and the audience to develop this particular concept of collective purpose and shared leadership?
Yeah. So be together. Take the extra time it takes to touch everybody, talk it to everybody, have group conversations, and as a formal leader, the discipline it takes to listen empathetically and actively. And then remember, if you want to go fast, you go alone, and if you want to go further, you go together. That's what collective purpose and shared leadership will get you.
Brilliant. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the time what we have for today. My key learning was the ability to connect people's purposes. I think that would be an alignment for our shared leadership. That's what I really understood from Will's story on the battleground. Different technicians, different people, but one intent, and we connect the intent. So we work on lone autonomy. I hope our listeners got plenty of takeaways from this particular episode today. Of course, you can get connected to Will through his social media network. I will put all the link on this podcast platform. And at the same time, if you want to explore more about what Will does, please log on to www.empowerthepack.com. Again, the link will be available on the podcast note as well. So on that note, well, thank you very much for your valuable time you spent in the cafe. And I know it's a huge topic, but we managed to squeeze it for 30 minutes. And I think there are plenty of learning our listeners and audience can do. On that note, thank you very much, Will, for your valuable time. And I wish you all the very best as well.
Azim, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this podcast of EI Cafe with Azim. We sure do hope you enjoyed it. And if you have any questions, please do reach out. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to the show that is available on all major podcast platforms, so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Please rate, review, and leave a comment and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you're leaving with some great insights that can help you in your daily life. Follow Azim on social media and do write to us on topics and experts you'd like to hear from, and we will try to get them on board. Goodbye for now, until we meet again on another episode of EI Cafe with Azim.